Hey, what's up, guys? We are here at the NARR conference with Clay, the founder of our exclusive software provider of AzRHA, Sobriety Hub. Many of you have seen him. He's done a lot of workshops and presentations at our monthly meetings. He's also here in Richmond, Virginia, and we are going to sit down with him. We're going to talk about the progress that we've already seen since making the partnership in July and what's to come here in the future. So, Clay?
Nice.
Say what's up.
What's up? My name's Clay. As Eric mentioned, I'm with Sobriety Hub. We've got a pretty awesome deal with AzRHA where we made it available to basically all the certified operators for free for a period of time. And our ultimate goal is to collect that outcomes data and help AzRHA get that funding that they deserve.
Exactly, man. That's obviously the end goal, is becoming as grant ready as possible so we can get the funding that we need to lobby with the state for effective policy change and hopefully put together scholarship funds and things of that nature for everybody that's part of AzRHA, and ultimately help the residents, right? Which is the end goal of all of this, right? Is we want to help people in recovery. So we wanted to just touch base with Clay. Since the partnership being announced in July, I think it was, how many AzRHA certified operators have signed up?
Yeah, I think might have been May or June.
It might have been a little earlier, yeah.
And we've got maybe 15 or 20 organizations on the hub, which of course represents, 2 or 3 times as many houses, and then a few hundred beds. I think, I'll have to double check, but probably around 200 AzRHA certified beds actively managed on the hub at this time.
Okay, and of those providers that have signed up for Sobriety Hub, can you touch on, from your experience, what that has been like for them as far as like the upgrades that you guys made in your onboarding process and what feedback you've received as far as the use of Sobriety Hub?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think overall, as you know, we've been adding stuff constantly, and essentially the end product is a product of the customer feedback. And so basically my job is to take the vision of the vision of all of our customers, aggregate it, prioritize it, and add the features ultimately that the customers want. The feedback so far has been really positive, particularly around some new things that we've implemented, basically building forms for people. You know how valuable forms can be, and we used to
And to touch on that, by forms, resident contracts, orientation agreements, all of the documentation that you need to have for the state, that's what he's referring to when it comes to forms.
Yeah, so basically you could digitize everything that's compliance related, anything that requires an e-signature that you got to show if you get audited to, what's the AzRHA thing called? The certification body?
Department of Health Services, DHS.
Or the licensing body, DHS. Yep. So that's a tremendous value there.
Right.
And then just providing that hands-on support has been a big change that we've made in the last few months, that it's just increased usability. People need a software company that can actually walk them through how to use it. Even if, and it's pretty simple relatively to what's out there, but you still need that training.
Yeah, you still need that training, and when you have, when you've been running for X amount of years and you've been having paper contracts and your house managers have the paper contract signed, they file it into a filing cabinet, they're logging everything by hand, there's a learning curve that goes with using everything digitally, doing it on your phone or computer. You guys have the onboarding process where you sit down with the entire leadership team, you put them through that training, and then ongoing support after that. Maybe just touch on that. Yeah,
well, there's a fear, right, of change, and a lot of operators, especially ones that have been doing it for a while, they've done a great job Hub, and they've helped tons of people. They've saved a lot of lives. You know, changing their pen and paper system to something like Sobriety Hub is frightening. And so I think that, for lack of a better term, like providing that hand-holding service up front is just, even if it only takes an hour or two for somebody to understand how to use it, just like that kind of like having a buddy to say like, okay, no, you're not doing it wrong. Okay, if you log a UA and you mess it up, like, it's okay, you can delete it. Like, it's not, none of it's like gonna screw up your outcomes or anything like that. And then in terms of ongoing support, I mean, one thing that we added that, I don't know if you've seen it, but on the app you can like text or email, and then actually that text goes right to me, and I respond right away. But the crazy thing is we don't really get that many texts on there. You know, like it's not nearly as frequent as you'd think.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it just comes down to when you roll out new features, there's always going to take time for people to adopt those new features. But I think the important thing to focus on, specifically when it comes to AzRHA, right, and our organization, is the state requires you to keep your resident documents. You've got to keep them for X amount of time after they discharge, and you have to be able to present them within a reasonable amount of time, and that includes a house manager all the way up to anybody in a leadership position. And most of us know when the state comes knocking, you have a 30-minute rule. They give you 30 minutes, you got to be on property, or somebody has to be on property in order to present them with that information. And so the main value here is if you integrate everything into one singular platform that every manager, director, owner, you all have access to, and you can access it quickly through your phone, that's going to help you through all of those Department of Health services when they do stop by, for whether it's a grievance or NODs or renewal inspections. Regardless of what it is, they're going to ask for that information, and you can store it all in one place on Sobriety Hub.
So, I mean, if I can comment on that, right, like it seems like there's a lot of different areas of value add, right? There's like the idea that the outcomes data is going to be standardized, and that can help get funding for AzRHA.
Right.
There's the idea that keeping your documents in one centralized location is going to help you when DHS comes knocking.
Right.
And then there's other benefits too, right? So like the house manager accountability. Are my house managers logging 2 UAs per resident per week like they're supposed to be doing? How are we doing our shift notes, our check-ins? If we care about mood events or meds, which some organizations do, some don't, how are you ensuring that your house managers are logging what they're supposed to be? That's another value. And then the third that I think is pretty important is just the efficiency that you get from having an application that feeds into a resident in the system, right? Like, as opposed to having multiple formats.
Right. And to kind of touch on what he was saying a little bit, we've thrown it around a couple times, the outcomes tracking. For all of you members that have been regularly attending our meetings, you know within the past 6 months we've made a more concerted effort in order to become grant ready so that we can receive some funding in order to get the organization to where it needs to go. And we've made a lot of headway with our lobbyists and things of that nature to repair that relationship with DHS. But this funding that we're going after, it goes beyond just reform of the policies at the state level. What we're looking to do is provide more education and resources for operators, whether you want to open a sober living or whether you want to just continue pouring into your organization, or setting up scholarship funds or hardship funds for either residents who are coming from situations where they don't have their rent up front, or residents who have been with you for a certain amount of time and they fall on some sort of hardship, right? Those are all things that we can use those funds for, and since we are a 501c3 registered now, we qualify to go after those funds. But in order to do that, we need aggregate data across a good sample size, or a big enough sample size of our entire organization, that's showing quantifiable outcomes when it comes to success rates, employment rates, MAT services, things of that nature, and those are all data points that are tracked on the platform.
And I mean, that right there is reason enough to use Sobriety Hub, right?
Yeah.
But even if you don't want to use it just to be a team player, there's also like, you're going to save time, you're going to increase efficiency, and you're going to increase accountability with your staff.
Right.
So, I mean, obviously I think it's a no-brainer, but there's a lot of good reasons to sign up.
Yeah, and we have a really good relationship with them. As you obviously, we're here with them now. We've been working, Plugged In Recovery's been working with Clay and their team for since last year's NARR conference, and we've had nothing but good things to say about them, and we're really happy that we're able to form this partnership. But we just wanted to put out this video to kind of just check in with you guys, let you know what's going on out here in Virginia. Clay, real quick before we wrap up, do you have anything coming up in the future as far as updates? Maybe touch on some of the new pricing plans for when that trial period runs out, stuff like that members can look forward to?
Yeah, so I mean, people who have signed up already can look forward to being on our legacy pricing plan, which is generally cheaper. So that's a great benefit. In terms of features that are coming, there are a lot of features coming. By way of outcomes reporting, we're looking at basically just building out the outcomes more so that we can do custom reports. So it's a little in the weeds, but like if you ever used like Power BI or like a tool where you can query a database and say, I want to see age charted against like age and drug of choice charted against length of stay, or something like that, where it's going to get more complicated. And the great thing is all that data is already stored. It's just a matter of basically building the pretty reports and creating functionality where you can generate them yourself.
Right, and the reason why we're pushing for everyone to use the one singular platform is the more operators that we have using Sobriety Hub, that data is more easily compiled into those reports, and they're able to help us out on the back end of sending those reports to us rather than having to staff someone from our organization to go through and put all that information together. We appreciate it. Clay, thank you.
Thank you, Eric.
Oh. Made that awkward. It's okay. All right, guys.
It was such a good video.